Happy Saturday, Facebook family. Happy Saturday. It is your girl, Deanna C. Hughes, checking in. Just got out of a pretty amazing meeting with two folks I've never met before to talk about collaborating on writing an article piece. Shout out, shout out. I just thank God for opportunities to network, to build intentional relationship, to do positive things, like that great ripple effect in the spaces that we occupy as student affairs professionals. More to come on that though, but this afternoon we will be concluding the book of Numbers in the Old Testament. For folks who have been checking in with me from time to time, every Saturday or Sunday at 4 p.m. Eastern Time, I check in and just share lessons learned from reading through the Old Testament. A couple years back, soon as I was done reading, I originally was going to keep reading in the New Testament, prayed about it, talked to God, and was like, you know what, it would be cool to capture what I learned, not only capture it, but share it with the people who mean a lot to me, as well as people who know of me. It's a lot of family here on the Book of Faces, so it's also an opportunity for them to see my face and hear my voice. For those I don't get a chance to check in with on a week-to-week or month-to-month basis, based on just my reality. Every day, y'all, I'm doing my best to honor God, honor my phenomenal husband who does so much. I can't brag about him enough. Try my best not to flood all of social media with just how awesome he is. It's a lot that he does, and that has therefore positioned me to be able to accomplish things for myself without losing sight of who I am outside of being a wife, outside of being a mom, outside of being a sister, a daughter, a cousin, etc. But big ups to my man, Frank. Love him very much. And I know that y'all who know him, y'all know I got me a gem. But I say all that to say, as a result of many of his sacrifices and ability to help us to maintain good, healthy household structure, I'm able to check in and allow for family, friends, loved ones to see me, hear from me. I'm also able to truly devote time to our Father, which art in heaven. Holy is his name, to just remember that everything I am and everything I do is because of him. And no matter where I'm at or what I'm doing, it's ministry, so that he is glorified. So if I sound like a broken record when I do say all glory to God, it's truly because of God. I cannot apologize for that. I'm just grateful that I have the desire and the heart to want to give honor to where honor is due. But I'm excited to say that we are going to be wrapping up in the book of Numbers. And Numbers is 36 chapters. So y'all know I typically go on about 5 chapters at a time just to make sure that I try to keep within 30, 45 minutes when I'm checking in. Folks who know me well, y'all know I love to talk. When I get excited, I start telling stories. Other things come to me and I just get to talking. So I'm going to do my best to honor that 30, 45-minute time frame. At the end of the day, it's all about glorifying God, allowing his word to continue to spread, and cut down any and all misinformation when it comes to what his word says, and what it is he desires for our lives. But through the Bible, starting at Numbers chapter 31, let's jump into it. So in Numbers 31, here's what I wrote down before I read a few things. But in Numbers chapter 31, the Lord told Moses to go to war with the Midianites. Initially, they, as in the Hebrews, the Israelites, God's chosen people, they killed all the men, burnt their cities, and took their spoil, leaving women and children alive. Moses was angry that they kept the women alive and had every male among the little ones and the women killed because of the harlotry that was allowed. Some things I read, I'm like, whoa. But understanding who God is, he is a God who is a jealous God. and he was not feeling people's deciding to serve other idols and other things before him. So beyond the Israelites, because they were stiff-necked and hard-headed too, were a lot of others that stemmed from the beginning of man, right? Adam, Eve, they had Cain, Abel, Seth, and so forth, right? Back in the day, y'all, they were living for hundreds of years, all the way to through and past Noah's time. And then we would see some ages up to 130, still 100, over 100 years. So world, replenish yourself, fruitful, multiplying, that was the reality. But as a result of folks coming into their own, sin being sin, they were out here wilding. So God got to the point of saying, look, I have chosen you all to honor me. Hebrews, Israelites, I've taken you out of the land of Egypt. Here is how I want to be honored and reverenced. I have a land for you. On the way to this journey to this land, and in this land are people that I cannot rock with because they are disobedient. They are not trying to rock with me. Get rid of them. Now, when you read it, sometimes you're like, man, the babies too, right? The women and the children. But God said what he said, and he said it because when you don't get rid of everyone, love and lust be love and lusting. And what happens is different beliefs and ideals start to get intertwined, intermixed. And for those who grew up churched, y'all know the stories of David. Y'all know the stories of Solomon. Y'all know the stories of other men of God who got with other women outside of the chosen people. And God was very specific about don't mix like that. Don't procreate because you start the nonsense and the confusion, right? And there's the temptation that comes in when you don't stick with those who were raised under truth, under me and who I am, right? Under I am that I am. So that's why God was like getting down like that, even though like us and our flesh would be like, oh my goodness, you killed the little kids too. Like, but it is what it is. And on the flip side, those who did not serve God and who wanted to be the king and the lowercase gods, that's what they did to God's people. You see the story of Moses, right? You see the story when Yeshua, Jesus, was born, how he had to go hide. His mama, daddy, and him had to get up out of there because King Herod was like, hold on, what y'all three wise men talking about? Y'all coming to serve the true and living king. I'm the king. But okay, when he gonna be born, right? And what did King Herod say? He said exactly what Pharaoh said. Every child ages 2 and under that is a male child, murk him. Because I don't need nobody taking over, right? I want to be number one. So what we see is what just was during that time frame. So I'll get off that tangent because there I go again. But that's what I wrote for Numbers chapter 31. But specifically in 6 through 20 is what I'm going to read. All right, so Numbers chapter 31, verse 6 starts. Then Moses sent them to the war, 1,000 from each tribe. Y'all remember Jacob had 12 sons. His sons represents the tribes of Israel. Reuben, Simeon, some of the oldest, all the way down to Joseph and Benjamin. You got Judah, you got Asher, you got Dan, you got Gad, you got Naphtali, you got Issachar. I can spit them off like that because I've been standing here to see it, right? But it's 12. So verse 6, Moses sent them to the war, 1,000 from each tribe, so 12,000. He sent them to the war with Phinehas, the son of Eleazar, the priest, with the holy articles, the signal trumpets in his hand. 7, and they warred against the Midianites, just as the Lord commanded Moses, and they killed all the males. Verse 8, they killed the kings of the Midian with the rest of those who were killed, Evi, Rechem, Zur, Hur, and Reba, the 5 kings of Midian. Balaam, the son of Beor, they also killed with the sword. 9, and the children of Israel took the women of Midian captive with their little ones, and took as spoil all their cattle, all their flocks, and all their goods. 10, they also burned with fire all the cities where they dwelt, and all their forts. 11, and they took all the spoil and all the booty of man and beast. Y'all know pirates' booty. I remember being a kid just laughing my head off. But that is spoil, all the fancy things, the trinkets, the gold, the myrrh, the incense, whatever was seen as valuable possessions. So 12, this is when Moses gets angry. Then they brought the captives, the booty, and the spoil to Moses, to Eleazar the priest, and to the congregation of the children of Israel, to the camp in the plains of Moab by Jordan, across from Jericho. When you do read in the Old Testament, for me, I was particularly intrigued with how specific they were about geography. And by default, y'all know what I did. I went into like Google Atlas to see were these names still those names. Sad truth is there were many other wars and people taking over, and by default, what do? They change names, right? But if you are a historian or you like to kind of like go down the beautiful rabbit hole of where exactly are these places located, it's some stuff out there at certain libraries as well as in the world of social media that can allow you to see where the land of Canaan was and where Moses' journey was from Egypt through the wilderness of Zin, through Horeb, through all the different areas until they landed into the land of Canaan. All right, off that tangent. So that was verse 12 and 13. Verse 14. So they've come through. And then verse 13, sorry. And Moses, Eleazar the priest, and all the leaders of the congregation went to meet them outside the camp. 14. But Moses was angry with the officers of the army, with the captains over thousands and captains over hundreds who had come from the battle. 15. And Moses said to them, have you kept all the women alive? Verse 16, look, these women caused the children of Israel through the counsel of Balaam to trespass against the Lord in the incident of Peor. And there was a plague among the congregation of the Lord. 17, now therefore, kill every male among the little ones and kill every woman who has known a man intimately. Y'all caught that? Verse 18, but keep alive for yourselves all the young girls who have not known a man intimately. 19, and as for you, remain outside the camp 7 days, whoever has killed any person and whoever has touched any slain. Purify yourselves and your captives on the 3rd day and on the 7th day. 20, purify every garment, everything made of leather, everything woven of goat's hair, and everything made of wood. Stop there. So from a cultural standpoint, God's statutes, judgments, laws, Moses told them, this is what y'all need to do, because I know what I told y'all not to do. So he was very specific about why in the world would you keep these women alive who have tempted and caused the children of Israel to fall into idolatry. Get rid of them, get rid of their sons. All the little boys, they got to go. Right. So that just goes back to what's carried, the legacies that's carried to cut down on anything that's not of God. Cut it out. But that's where that was, and all that kind of resonated with me for the beginning of 31. And then the last part was verse 49. So during the war against the Midianites, not one man lost his life. I thought that was dope to read. So 12,000, 1,000 men from each tribes went to go to war with the Midianites. The Midianites had 5 kings and a whole bunch of other folks going on, right? God said, go do what you need to do. And verse 49 of 31 reads, and they said to Moses, your servants have taken account of the men of war who are under our command, and not a man of us is missing. So to me, that goes back to the power of God when you're obedient. Nobody lost their life because they were obedient. Granted, they wasn't all the way to the T because they brought back all the women, knowing that some of those women were problematic. But they then understood the task at hand when Moses said what he said, and they did exactly what was required of them. So that was a cool thing to see in Numbers 31. Moving to Numbers 32, I'm going to read 11 through 13 and then 20 through 33. But what I wrote was Reuben and Gad, so 2 of the sons of Jacob, 2 of the 12 tribes, they asked Moses could they dwell in an area they were passing through that was good for their livestock. Now this upset Moses and the Lord because they disregarded the land that was already promised to them and the reality that they needed to continue to help fighting with their brothers to get to and through the promised land, the land of Canaan. And my question was like, did they forget, or were they just distracted? But what I will say is, as I continue to read through Numbers chapter 32, I saw that Gad and Reuben, they doubled down honorably to say, just let certain folks of our family and our livestock stay in this land, because this land is perfect for us. Like, yes, I know God promised us the land of Canaan, but like, we good here. But us and the men that are of age to continue to fight, we gonna fight. We gonna keep going with y'all. And when we're done, when we have achieved the goal of what God said, then we're gonna come back here. But Moses, we just want to make sure like you are good with that, right? So they doubled down. And I will say all of Numbers chapter 32 is worth reading. But that was kind of like my takeaways from there. But with Numbers 32 starting at 11, I'm going to stop at 13. This is what stood out to me, and I highlighted it. Verse 11, surely none of the men who came up from Egypt from 20 years old and above shall see the land of which I swore to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, because they have not wholly followed me. So this is the Lord God who's angry, talking to Moses to then relate to the people. So anybody that was age 20 and older was not going to see the promised land because they were not being obedient. Verse 12, this is the caveat. He says, except Caleb, the son of Jephunneh, the Kenizzite, and Joshua or Hoshea, the son of Nun, for they have wholly followed the Lord. So out of all of the children at the age 20 and up, God said they're not going to make it. But these two, I see them, they're doing needs to be done, they may enter. 13, so the Lord's anger was aroused against Israel, and he made them wander in the wilderness 40 years until all the generation that had done evil in the sight of the Lord was gone. So God made them wander in the wilderness for 40 years because of the evilness. God is a holy God. He was bringing them into a promised land, promised to their forefathers. And he did not want the riffraff to come into said land. So they didn't have to wander, but because of their disobedience and God saying like, these jokers evil, they can't get right. Y'all just gonna have to suffer, right? Sometimes many suffer because of a few and the ignorance. And he meant what he said. As we continue to read and see, we see they wandered. Folks died and didn't make it. And when they died off, he said, all right, time to go. But you got to get rid of these people to get to go on and take over and subdue the land. So that was 11 to 13. And then verses 20 through 33. It's a lot. So I'll still read it. Y'all can fast forward if you want. But verse 20 of chapter 32. Then Moses said to them, if you do this thing, if you arm yourselves before the Lord for the war, verse 21, and all your armed men cross over the Jordan before the Lord until he has driven out his enemies from before him, verse 22, and the land is subdued before the Lord, then afterward you may return and be blameless before the Lord and before Israel. And this land shall be your possession before the Lord. So this is Moses talking to Gad and Reuben, who was like, ooh, this land is perfect. I know we on our way somewhere, but can we have it? We don't want to go to Canaan. We want this right here. This is perfect for our family and our livestock and how much we got going on. So this is the condition. If you do these things, verse 23, but if you do not do so, then take note, you have sinned against the Lord, and be sure your sin will find you out. 24, build cities for your little ones and folds for your sheep, and do what has proceeded out of your mouth. 25, and the children of Gad and the children of Reuben spoke to Moses, saying, your servants will do as my Lord commands. 26, our little ones, our wives, our flocks, and all our livestock will be there in the cities of Gilead. 27, but your servants will cross over, every man armed for war, before the Lord to battle, just as my Lord says. 28, so Moses gave command concerning them to Eleazar the priest, to Joshua the son of Nun, and to the chief fathers of the tribes of the children of Israel. 29, and Moses said to them, if the children of Gad and the children of Reuben cross over the Jordan with you, every man armed for battle before the Lord, and the land is subdued before you, then you shall give them the land of Gilead as a possession. 30. But if you do not cross over armed with you, they shall have possessions among you in the land of Canaan. 31. Then the children of Gad and the children of Reuben answered, saying, as the Lord has said to your servants, so we will do. 32. We will cross over armed before the Lord into the land of Canaan, but the possession of our inheritance shall remain with us on this side of the Jordan. 33. So Moses gave to the children of Gad, to the children of Reuben, and to half the tribe of Manasseh, the son of Joseph, the kingdom of Sihon, king of the Amorites, and the kingdom of Gog, king of Bashan, the land with its cities within the borders, the cities of the surrounding country. So I forgot about Manasseh. Half the tribe, y'all, of Manasseh was like, we want to stay here too. So everything that they had took from the kings prior to Sihon, what his name was, Og, whomever, that is a land that they occupied because they essentially decimated it. Everybody that was a different type of ite, except for an Israelite, was no longer present to be a threat or to occupy said land. So there you go, y'all. Numbers 32. Moving on to Numbers 33. In a nutshell, Numbers 33 was a recap of Israel's journey from Egypt. What I love about it, because it's certain things that like I highlighted, but it provides more details from the beginning of being enslaved in the land of Egypt to how they journey out of the land of Egypt, the plagues that impacted Pharaoh and his people to get him to the point to say, y'all go ahead. Y'all remember God purposefully hardened his heart to show his might and his glory and get through those multiple plagues. But every step of the way, including the cities, countries, parishes, land names, seas, oceans, rivers, brooks, whatever you want to name, all of it was very much detailed in chapter 33 in the book of Numbers. And verse 49, I don't know why I highlighted, if I'm being honest, like I'm looking at it, but it just says they camped by the Jordan from Beth Jesimoth as far as the Abel Achiah Grove in the plains of Moab. But I highlighted a few things, and I think it was more so to for geography purposes, me wanting to see like, where is that on the map? And or if it's changed, what's the new name of where it is on the map? But that's all I kind of wrote for Numbers 33, a recap of Israel's journey from Egypt, getting to the promised land. And then just different instructions for taking over to subdue the land of Canaan, because it wasn't a desolate, unoccupied land. People were living there. There was a lot established there. But hundreds of thousands of Israelites that were warriors and tent makers and just all type of folks to build and create cities, they were present to go do what needed to be done with God on their side. So that was that with Numbers 33, because I'm looking more to see like what else did I highlight. But I will say verse 55 and 56, I'm going to read it, because God tells them to go and take that land, and then he says what happens if they don't right here. But chapter 33, verse 55 says, But if you do not drive out the inhabitants of the land before you, then it shall be that those whom you let remain shall be irritants in your eyes and thorns in your sides, and they shall harass you in the land where you dwell. Verse 56. Moreover, it shall be that I will do to you as I thought to do to them. So again, God saying, don't play with me. When I say go do what needs to be done, get it done. Because if you don't, these are the consequences. And nobody wants those ramifications, or should not want, is what I'll say. Moving on, I wanted to highlight that verses 50 through 56 is important. I only read 55 and 56, but starting at verse 50 of Numbers 33, I just wrote important in all caps. And I said, the Lord told them to go take the land and what would happen if they didn't. So it's more context if you do want to read prior to the last two verses that I provided. But start at verses 50 and go all the way through 56 if you want to see that. All right, so moving on to Numbers 34. Specifically 1 through 12 and 34, I wrote, when the Lord was speaking to Moses about the land of Canaan and its borders by name, they were literally there, but not there. For many, many years, they were next door, essentially. It's like you see where you can be and you can just go if you stop being intimidated by the things you see and the things you hear. But they were there, but not there. It's almost like when you driving and you get to like that border, if you're passing through one state, like for instance, for me, Florida turning into Georgia, they were at the line, but would not cross the line. And they were in that situation. Y'all know they pitched tents for many, many years. But I saw the names of the cities and the seas, and I was like, wow, like y'all was there. So again, like if you look at the map, as you read through the word, like you'll see how close they were, but they were afraid. They were disobedient, and then we'll learn more why. But what I would say is, I'm going to read, I'm trying to see when I look at it. I'm going to specifically focus on reading 13 and 15. But what we'll see here in Numbers chapter 34, 13 through 15, only 9.5 tribes were told by Moses what the Lord said about the land and its borders. Because if y'all remember, so it's technically 10.5, right? 10.5 tribes. Because if you remember, Gad, Reuben, and half the tribe of Manasseh, they were in Gilead on the other side, where King Sihon and Og was, those two kings. They wanted to build and dwell and occupy that land. So only 10.5 tribes were told by Moses what the Lord said about the land and its borders. Again, tribe of Reuben and Gad, half the tribe of Manasseh settled down elsewhere upon request. Now, that didn't hold fast. So at the end of the day, I wrote, everybody didn't hold fast to God's promise. They ended up growing weary, getting distracted, losing focus. And what I wrote there was like, this happens to a lot of us. Like we'll consecrate, we'll go to church, go to Bible study, we'll pray, we'll Bible study at home, all the things, right? And then we'll hear and receive a word, be inspired, Holy Spirit give us peace on the decision, and then we'll allow life or other distractions to cause us to lose sight on what it is, especially if in our mind it's taking too long, right? We'll understand to walk by faith and not by sight, and then get frustrated by what we see. Or, you know, the enemy's job is to cause you to be fearful, to have doubt, to just flat out not believe, right? But what I wrote was like, this happens to all of us. We get distracted, we lose focus because we're impatient, and or we would hope or want it to be easier. But Numbers chapter 34, 13 through 15 reads, 13, then Moses commanded the children of Israel, saying, this is the land which you shall inherit by lot, which the Lord has commanded to give to the 9 tribes and to the half tribe. So take back what I said. I said 10.5 is 9. Me and math, 9.5 tribes. 14, for the tribe of the children of Reuben, according to the house of their fathers, and the tribe of the children of Gad, according to the house of their fathers, have received their inheritance. And the half tribe of Manasseh has received its inheritance. 15, the 2 tribes and the half have received their inheritance on the side of the Jordan, across from Jericho eastward toward the sunrise. Very specific again. You get you a map and you're going to see y'all was there but not there. And then we'll later learn what it was all about, like why they struggled to get to where they needed to be. All right, so moving along. Numbers 34, jumping down to verses 16 through 29. Here is all about the leaders that were appointed for each tribe and how they divided the land. They did it by lots of land. So a lot, a portion. Nowadays we use the terminology acreage, right? Square feet. But they divvied up the land based on the tribes. So you're going to see that if you take the time to read verses 16 through 29. But the Lord told Moses to divide the land by lots. The names of Caleb and Joshua were essentially the leaders. So Moses understood that he wouldn't enter into the promised land. Just run it back real quick. Moses heard what God said about appointing and entrusting Joshua and Caleb to get the men, women, and children the rest of the way. But their names and their fathers' names was shared specifically in verses 16 through 29 of all the tribes when they broke down the land, the areas of land that each tribe will occupy. I always think it's cool when they say the father of, going back to like the source of the roots, if that makes sense. But that was the conclusion of 34 for me, as far as what stood out and what I wrote down. Numbers chapter 35. I highlighted 7 and 8, but I'm going to read verses 1 through 3 first. Then I'm going to read 7 and 8 just to help with some context pieces. But here, Levites were taken care of by all their brothers representing the 9.5 tribes. So in 35 and 1, and the Lord spoke to Moses in the plains of Moab by the Jordan across from Jericho, saying, 2, command the children of Israel that they give the Levites cities to dwell in from the inheritance of their possession, and you shall also give the Levites common land around the cities. 3, they shall have the cities to dwell in, and their common land shall be for their cattle, for their herds, and for all their animals. And I'm going to jump to 7. 7. So all the cities you will give to the Levites shall be 48. These you shall give with their common land. And 8. And the cities which you will give shall be from the possession of the children of Israel. From the larger tribe you shall give many. From the smaller you shall give few. Each shall give some of its cities to the Levites in proportion to the inheritance that each receives. I'm going to stop there. That stood out to me because y'all know we're in a world where people do not like to share. They like to take and sometimes to brag about what they have. But what I'm constantly seeing, even in the Old Testament, is God honors and expects. I'll lead with God expects us to take care of our fellow brothers and sisters who do not have it, especially when they are his children. And God is intentional in saying, if I blessed you with more, it's because you are blessed to be a blessing. You should then give a proportion of what you have equivalent to what you've been blessed with, right? If I have blessed you with less than, you still are expected to give and be a blessing to those. But that's how the Levites were taken care of. And I thought that was really cool to see because they devoted their lives to God, right? They didn't go and get a trade. Some of them, I don't know if all of them had wives. I know that some of them had wives and children, right? But they did not have, because everything that they had was the Lord's. Everything that they created and built and did to honor God was for him. So by default, the people took care of them because they took care of the people based on what God expected of the Levites or the high priests. So that was that with Numbers 35. But what I wrote here was God's plan always involved his love, justice, grace, and mercy. And this was specifically related to Numbers 35, verses 9 through 34. So the remainder of that chapter. This was about refuge cities for folks who committed murder or something worthy of immediate death. So the folks who did something they should not have done had an opportunity to run to a refuge city. They were able to flee to a refuge city and await their day in court versus face the immediate death penalty based on who witnessed the wrong that they had done. So as always, there were exceptions to who could and who could not be redeemed, often based on intention and future behaviors for the person who committed the offense. So if what happened was unintentional, but the outcome was just terrible, like you pushed somebody in a fight and they fell and they fell wrong, broke their neck. You're upset, but it was not your intention to kill them. Right? You had an opportunity to see your day in court and to live peaceably in a city of refuge, but you had to get there because the people who essentially were like bounty hunters they were coming from you and they was coming to kill you, because that was a code. That was the way it was. You swing your sword, you live by the sword, you die by the sword mentality. So if your intention was not malicious, there was hope. When it was malicious, you died. You died. You didn't get your day in court. And then future behaviors. If you went into the refuge city and you was wilding out, or you decided you just about to like leave the refuge city to do what you want to do in another city where you're not protected, you would face death because folks knew what you did. So specifically, verses 15 of 35, I'm going to read, and then 29 through 34 really quickly, just so y'all can get a little fuller understanding of what I'm talking about for those who don't want to read the whole thing. But 35 verse 15, these cities shall be for refuge for children of Israel, for the stranger and for the sojourner among them, that anyone who kills a person accidentally may flee there. So that's the context. And then verse 29 through 34. And these things shall be a statute of judgment to you throughout your generations and all your dwellings. 30. Whoever kills a person, the murderer shall be put to death on the testimony of witnesses, but one witness is not sufficient testimony against the person for the death penalty. 31. Moreover, you shall take no ransom for the life of a murderer who is guilty of death, but he shall surely be put to death. 32. And you shall take no ransom for him who has fled to his city of refuge, that he may return to dwell in the land before the death of the priest. 33. So you shall not pollute the land where you are, for blood defiles the land. And no atonement can be made for the land for the blood that is shed on it, except by the blood of him who shed it. 34. Therefore do not defile the land which you inhabit, in the midst of which I dwell, for I the Lord dwell among the children of Israel. And I'm gonna stop there. There's a lot of really cool things there for folks who understand atonement and bloodshed. The Lord told Moses to tell Caleb and Joshua, this is what folks need to understand. If you shed blood in this land which I have deemed as holy, where you know that I dwell, you are going to die. Your blood will be shed. Don't do that. These refuge cities are not meant for that. There are other places to where you need to do what must be done after multiple witnesses, essentially like being a court of law, after the jury and the judge makes the decision on whether that person is to be put to death or that person is to be released and to do restitution or, be restored back to the community in some different way. And it was situational, as you do read. But I love like seeing the specificities of how things were done, taking into account sometimes people mess up on accident. Sometimes people out here just they don't lost their mind, right? And then the consequences, or the grave consequences, death. So that was that with 35. Wrapping up with Numbers chapter 36, because it's the last chapter of the book. 5 through 13 is what really resonated with me in particular. And what I wrote was, the father who only had daughters, his daughters were permitted to marry in their same tribe. So this was brought up earlier, and it kind of wraps up here again regarding just the marriage of female heirs. So they were of the tribe of Manasseh, and they were allowed to keep their land and their inheritance with their people, even though their dad had fathered no sons. This remained the law for all future fathers whose heirs were only daughters, which I thought was pretty cool. And I learned that Noah, again, was a unisex name, specifically in verses 10 and 11. But this was brought up a couple times in the book of Numbers. So I figured that it must be really significant. And Zelophehad is the dad. He had multiple daughters, no sons. When it comes to inheritance being divvied up, culture says the male heirs get it. And those who don't have male heirs before this right here that I'm going to read, they had to marry into somebody else. And that heir, that male, essentially possessed whatever it is that their dad left to them. So these daughters are like, hold on, right? Can our tribe still have our inheritance? Or are you telling us that we must marry into another tribe? Because if we do that, then our father's inheritance does not exist. I'm the tribe of Manasseh, but if I go and marry somebody in the tribe of Judah or in the tribe of Issachar and Naphtali, then My daddy's inheritance, Manasseh, is now the Naphtalites, Judah, right? The Asherites. So that was what they came for to speak on. But I'll read verses 5 through 13 and I'll wrap up. So, verse 5, then Moses commanded the children of Israel according to the word of the Lord, saying, what the tribe of the sons of Joseph speaks is right. Verse 6, this is what the Lord commands concerning the daughters of Zelophehad, saying, let them marry whom they think best, but they may marry only within the family of their father's tribe. I'm going to pause there. Shout out to God telling Moses to say to the women, y'all can marry who you think is best. Everybody was not privileged to do that. And I know that y'all know that when you do read from a cultural standpoint, as well as other customs, cultures of different nations. Everybody don't have the privilege to decide whom they want to marry, right? But moving along, so the Lord says this to Moses, and then verse 8, and every daughter who possesses an inheritance in any tribe of the children of Israel shall be the wife of one of the family of her father's tribe, so that the children of Israel may possess the inheritance of his fathers. 9. Thus no inheritance shall change hands from one tribe to another, but every tribe of the children of Israel shall keep its own inheritance. 10. Just as the Lord commanded Moses, so did the daughters of Zelophehad. 11. For Mahlah, Tirzah, Hoglah, Milcah, and Noah, the daughters of Zelophehad were married to the sons of their father's brothers. Did I read all the way through? Nope. 12. They were married into the families of the children of Manasseh, the son of Joseph, and their inheritance remained in the tribe of their father's family. 13. These are the commandments and the judgments which the Lord commanded the children of Israel by the hand of Moses in the plains of Moab, by Jordan, across from Jericho. So that was the last chapter highlight in the book of Numbers. The next party is the book of Deuteronomy, which for those who read it before, a lot of oral history it's a recap, right? And expectations of what you share to your children, to share to their children, to share to their children, which I absolutely love. But appreciate y'all for listening in. I pray that you learned something new. I pray that you have been inspired to read for yourself, see for yourself, so you can know for yourself what it is that the Word of God says. And as you read, I pray that whatever you need to receive in your day-to-day reality that you receive. Continue to make it a great weekend. Take care of yourselves. As y'all continue to have questions, want to talk offline about some things, want to jump on. Again, I always welcome folks to jump in. We can tag team. We can share the things that really have resonated with us, etc. But until next time, y'all continue to make it a great day.